Syed Yawar Ali from Nestle Pakistan, Seema Aziz from Barees, Naseer Akhtar from InforTech, Vaseem Anwar from American Business Forum, and they're going to be in conversation with Saad Ahsanuddin from Cinepax.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Delighted you could join us today. I have a group of very eminent business people here today to talk about not only what has happened, because we all give a lot of prognosis on how things in Pakistan have not gone well, but actually the way forward and what they are doing in their individual capacity and how they're networking with the government, as well as trying to bring out innovation and policies, as well as support the government. Yawar Saab also is involved with something called the Pakistan Business Council, which I don't know if you guys have heard or not. But the Pakistan Business Council is about 100 companies which account for 40% of Pakistan's exports, 25% of Pakistan's taxes, but more importantly, they contribute about 11% of GDP of Pakistan. So big business is not always bad business. It's also sometimes which helps drive the economy, creates jobs, creates taxes. And without the engines of growth, it is very difficult for an economy or a government to function without the taxes generated from them. So I'm glad for the opportunity today that we have three of these very eminent people. Yawar Saab is the chairman of Nestle, but also very, very involved with the Pakistan Business Council. He was also the ex-chairman of it. He's on the board of it right now. Our other colleagues represent the technology sector. Akhtar is one of the leading minds in our IT sector, generates a lot of innovation as well as exports, is very involved with the Pakistan Council for IT. Pasha ke saath bhi you've been there. And Anwar Saab is somebody who I have a lot of respect for and represents the American Business Forum in Pakistan. He was also the chairman. But I think one of you must definitely ask him about his wife's business as well. It is by far one of the most innovative ideas in Pakistan. They've got 800,000 customers, 10,000 women who provide services in that IT sector, and it's a phenomenal growth story of Pakistan. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is I invite Yawar Saab to start off with about, sir, if you could take 4 or 5 minutes and give your idea about how Pakistan and business develops and everything works together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saad. And Assalamu alaikum ji. I'd like to break my presentation in two, because I see a very young audience here. So I'd like to take you back to 1947, when Pakistan came into being. The subcontinent had about 921 industries. Pakistan only got 4%, which was Mitchell's, Orient Match, Murray Brewery, and a few other small. So what did we do to develop? In 1948, there was a convention here, and to find out what would be the basis. And they said that let us start with the raw materials we have, which was cotton, which was skins and hides, and third one was jute being in East Pakistan. So, and I think this was the right way to go about. Next, please. Then came the role of government. And we hear a lot about it even today. What should be the role of government? They actually said we would like to encourage private sector. And also creating a favorable investment and operational climate. Today we find it very difficult to go and deal with government because it's getting very, very complicated. And government stepping in only when private sector was hesitant to invest. Next, please. Because the private sector actually either didn't have money or didn't have expertise. So they, to promote the industry, they came up with the following institutions. They had the Pakistan Industrial Development Corporation, and the role of the Pakistan Industrial Development Corporation was that where private sector would not come in, because it was too large a business industry or we didn't have the expertise, the PIDC would step forward, create that industry, and after some while, sell it off. Then the Investment Development Bank of Pakistan, IDBP, another credit lending agency. Then we had PICIC, which was the Pakistan Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation. And a very important one was the ADBP, which is the Agriculture Bank of Pakistan, because loaning to farmers is a big issue even now. And then on the other side, we had the National Investment Trust and Tariff Commission, and some other regulatory bodies that they set up. But by 1967, Pakistan had emerged as one of the foremost developing countries in all of this part of the world. And other countries were following Pakistan model. Basically, it was a group from Harvard, from the Harvard group, led by Sam Papanek, who came and they analyzed data and they found out where to invest how much or what were the priorities. And after that, they built the 5-year plan, which was then taken by many other countries. So we kept on going very well. The question I'd like to leave with all of you to ponder is, where did we go wrong? What happened to Pakistan? And maybe we'll come back to that later, but I'll leave it at that, and I'll come back for my second session later.
Can I now invite Akhtar, Naseer bhai, if you could just give an overview of the IT and everything else, like Yawar Saab, summarize it for us.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Naseer Akhtar. I was lucky enough to spend a few years early in my career in Silicon Valley in early 80s, mid 80s, till about mid 90s. We all know how IT sector is booming globally. That only last year, it outpaced in global market size. It outpaced oil and gas sector. Oil and gas last year was $5.2 trillion trade. ICT jumped to 5.5 trillion. And that happened only in the last 5 years, from 3 trillion to 5.5 trillion. That defines that how important it is not only to effectively utilize technology and services, but also capture the potential of IT services exports that we have. The biggest example that we see is obviously India next door, which is exporting $200 billion of IT services annually, whereas we are just at about $2.5–3 billion. Whereas, I mean, in terms of population, I mean, we are at 1:7 ratio. So, like many other sectors, we have been falling short of creating capacity to capture the potential. $2.2 trillion is purely which we can do it, and we can grab a share out of that 2.2 trillion annual global market size, out of which India is about 8%, 9%. We are at 0.15%, and another additional services market that is design, engineering, services, BPO, and all that, which is another $1.2 trillion. So these are the things which, if we are able to plan out or invest in human capital, because these are the two areas where we don't need brick and mortar machinery, power. I mean, we have all seen that why we have not been able to even grow our traditional exports like textiles, because number of bottlenecks that we hear or see, whether true or not, that the inputs are very expensive. But the real thing which I have diagnosed is the comfort zone that we have started living in. That is one thing. And our very low productivity. These are the two major factors why we have not been able to grow our exports and our per capita income or GDP growth is so productivity is, and why our productivity is low? Because we have not been consistently looking at the requirement of future education skills which are required to capture these opportunities, whether traditional upcoming new technologies and services. So these are fundamentals that we need to address, and we need to come out with concrete, how can we available to us.
Thank you, Naseer Saab. Anwar bhai, if you could also now tell us very quickly about your thoughts, because we are now moving from an export-based focus to domestic industry with total domestic products, and how you can also contribute towards this engine for growth.
With your permission, I'd like to deviate from my preparation after looking at the audience. I would like to go into a little storytelling mode rather than repeating all the indigenous, all these things what we are talking about. मैं पाकिस्तान आया था as a young graduate, a banker, investment banker, sucked into my family business, sent to Pakistan to go and explore from the US. A lot of frustration, and this I'm talking mid-90s, a lot of frustration. And I decided to pack up and go back. Then I got a break. Somebody gave me a break, and his name, an Australian oil and gas company operating in Pakistan. And before that, I was trying to get a project from Pakistan government, public sector, tried my level plus for 8-9 months, totally failed. And a lot of frustration, a lot of bureaucracy. Then I got after this guy, but he was not willing. And I tried 10 times Yawar, but he said he was bent upon giving the whole project to Descom. One day, I got a call from Jen. He said, Vaseem, I want to see you. So I got ready, picked up, and went to him, very excited. And then I realized that he was not talking good about Descom. And I had a lot of respect for Razak, because I saw Razak Saab in Descom as the only hope for me to come back to Pakistan and be in construction industry. And then I realized Descom was looking at taking the whole project, and they were interested in only giving the project by parts. So he gave us one break, and that one break from Jim Scott gave me the hope to stay in Pakistan and subsequently to contribute to the development of the country. Had there been no Jim Scott, I would have gone back. So all of you young people are sitting here. My suggestion to you is there are issues in every industry, there are issues in every country. But as long as your hopes, as long as your determination, your will is there and you're gritty, you need to be gritty. The only solution to all of the problems to operate in Pakistan is, I will sum it up in one word, and that is grit. You need to be gritty. Because Pakistan is a developing country, there are a lot of challenges, political instability is there, our economic uncertainty is there. Like, look, we are probably in the worst case of economic crisis we are facing. But this is probably a great learning for all of you guys to be able to come through it and see that how things can be done. This is a little story about my background. Now, I run an engineering about that. But prior to that, I'm the president of the American Business Forum. We have 47 US companies operating in Pakistan. So in first phase, I will take what are multinationals are facing problems in Pakistan, sir. Predominantly, the problem faced by multinationals operating in Pakistan, they relate to IPRs, then not having level playing field, then harassment and uncertain, inconsistent government policies. But having said so, they are still operating because Pakistan's market offers a huge potential to all these multinationals with their 11 different sectors, from agriculture to chemical to FMCGs to financial services to technology to construction engineering. They're all operating in the. Having said so, now I'll come to my side of the story, which is the construction. Construction industry is probably one of the oldest industry in the world. And in Pakistan, it is the second largest industry after textiles, especially in terms of employment generation, not as a percentage of the GDP. That's low. So Naseer sir, we need high value man hours billing. That leaves a big size of the population where they are not equipped education-wise be placed and they need to have a job. And construction industry does offer that avenue where people can go and step in brick and mortar and doing other things. But the issues which are faced by the construction industry, we are like capacity issues. The capacity is such that the vocational are not very effective. We've not been able to produce the manpower in relevant segments to the level where it should be generated. As a result, what happens is multinational companies, they step into Pakistan, take over a lot of business, and take the gravy money away, and the foreign currency goes back, and we end up doing very small value man hours, which does not contribute. So that's one way to look at. Now, but there are a few other things that construction has such an immense potential, but on the housing side, finances are not available. It is not being recognized as a proper industry. So what happens then is, like in India, 10% of the GDP is accounts for housing finance. Conversely, we have only 0.5% in Pakistan. So that's not a level playing field which is available. I'll come about the solutions in phase 2, but having said so, IT, in my opinion, and construction combined can definitely turn around the economy of the country. IT in terms of exports and enabling industry to all the businesses on the high end, whereas construction on the semi-skilled and the low-skill level that can contribute to the economy of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vaseem sir. I think what I'll do is ask one question each from the panel, so you guys can hear some more details about the interesting backgrounds they have, and then open it up entirely to you. The 1-2 questions which I would love for you to ask is about Vaseem Saab's wives and the business she started here. But the second thing is, these are people who've gone through the cycle of life in their business industry. Like Vaseem said, somebody needs one lucky break to start. There are a lot of young people here. I would encourage you to ask them how to start your own businesses, right? It's one of the most difficult things to do, being a serial entrepreneur in Pakistan, but it's also one of the most rewarding things to do. So I would encourage you to, in these sectors where you have IT, you have construction, you have multinationals, what exactly can happen in those to actually give rise to your own dreams and make them true. So, Yawar sir, where do you think are the engines of growth for the Pakistan economy? And let's just talk positively about how we can actually contribute more from a GDP perspective as well as a growth perspective.
Thank you, Saad. We have a presentation on that. Basically, I'd like to bring to your attention what is it that we can do ourselves without looking at somebody else to do it. These are in our control, and that is agriculture and livestock. Now, both of them are together about 20% of our GDP. And if you look at the livestock, it is actually bigger than the agriculture sector, but there is very little attention that any government has paid to livestock. And we have about 28 million cows, we have 29 million buffaloes. US has only 9 million cows. We have 57 together. We have a market around Pakistan, China, Indonesia, and so on, Gulf, about $70 billion worth of dairy products. China is importing $14 billion worth of meat. So these are things that we can develop and we should develop. Let's move on. Now, please go next one. So what needs to be done? This is, I think, a story that some of you may know. It's called the Green Revolution. Pakistan, when it started, was not able to even feed itself. So we had to get wheat from US on PL480. We're still getting wheat today. But then this came a new seed which is called Mexipa. Somewhere in 1965, during that period. And this particular seed, we saw that the production went up, or the productivity went up substantially. And Pakistan actually became self-sufficient. But what has happened is that there has been no further development of the seed sector. In fact, I think we missed the seed revolution. And now we have to see, this is one area, I think, with very little input. Seed cost is perhaps only 3 or 4% of your total cost of producing. And this is one sector I think we can, if we develop it, we can make a very big difference to our productivity and to our production. Next, please. Now, I actually belong to the dairy sector and the milk sector. And this is a very interesting one that in 1910, the Pakistani Sahiwal cow and the American Friesian were both producing the same amount of milk, which is about 2,000 liters in a year, which is around 6 liters a day. The US, Canada, and other countries have gone from 2,000 liters to 9,500, and we are still at 2,000. And that is what the issue is. So to do that, we do know the technology. We have artificial insemination, AI. Then you need computerized records, because when you improve a breed, what you take is the best cow, and then you breed, and you get the next best cow out of the next. So this is how you develop the genetic potential, what we call. So you take the best gene, and you keep on improving your genetic potential in that. The next is, this is a very good example of what genetic potential is about. And this is why the poultry industry has developed. Because they are importing actually the grandparent stock. And if you see in 1957, a new chick was about 34 grams. And in the year 2000, it was 44. So there was, but then came the how to develop and how to feed the chicken. And in the year 2005, it has gone up from 905 grams to 4,000. And this is what genetic potential does. There is no artificial thing about it, but it just keep on upgrading what you have. And if you see the other one, it's a cross section of what the poultry industry is. So you see how much more meat is available in with this genetic potential. So this is one area, the know-how is there. All we need is a bit of the right policies, encouragement for the sector. And we have about maybe 60% of our people are living on agriculture. Poultry industry has done well because they have been using the modern techniques. So I would leave it at that, because this is one of the engines of growth we can do ourselves. We don't have to go anywhere else. We don't need much more money also. We just need the right policy. Thank you.
So Vaseem, I'll come to you first and ask you, let's say, two things I would like to ask you is, one, as an engine of growth, how do you double employment in the construction industry without the government intervention, and what can the private sector do on itself? And secondly, for the younger people sitting in this room, where is the opportunity where someone with low capital, what are the idea which you would think as starting off today would be greatly beneficial for somebody to choose as a career or as a business to start with?
To answer your first part of the question, which is how do we in private sector play our role in terms of enhancing employment within the
Doubling the employment in, let's say, 3 years.
yeah. The best way to do is, as we have done it on our projects, that on each project, what we do is we set up a vocational training small institute. So while we have skilled workforce working there, we do get the new workforce recruited, get them in sort of an internship, get them sort of a program through where they work along with the skilled workforce over a period of anywhere 1 to 2 years, which is usually the duration of the project. And at the end of the project duration, we have created twice or 3 times of workforce from that very project. If we can, and for that what we did was we worked very closely with TEFTA, NEFTA, and not only in Pakistan, we have replicated this in Afghanistan by converting that into Pashto and Dari, and worked on 40 projects in Afghanistan where we taught a lot of manpower. So in my opinion, the best vocational training skill set which we can impart among the workforce is putting them at the job site, right at the job site where they actually learn apart from the classrooms and seeing actually how the work is being done and being part of it. So this is how it can have a multiplier effect.
And for some young people standing here in the construction sector, where is the opportunity you see where even people without a lot of capital can go out and start something?
Work construction for younger people, usually it is a very hardcore business, but for younger people, what I would recommend would be that technology, make use of technology. And construction has different phases, from conceiving a project to designing and planning, and then actually going out and physically executing that plan on ground. So the first phase, which is pertains to conceiving and designing of the project, that has a lot to do with the IT, and that capital requirement is very little. It's become more of an IT sector, as Naseer was also explaining, and he will highlight on this point further. In my opinion, for the younger people, do look into that. Then look at the projects like. Some of my younger colleagues I know within the Lahore and Pakistan industry, what they've done is they have conceived the construction project as like sort of a co-working space, office spaces also. So they have bought a piece of land, built a project, but a project to own and to operate it with the idea of providing a office sharing space. So it becomes a complete integrated project. And it doesn't have to be capital, doesn't have to be big. You can, if you own a piece of land or somebody owns a piece of land, you've got the idea and you have the demand side fulfillment skills, you can pool in the resources to do that. Then creating environment friendly projects. That's one of the areas where younger people can focus on to produce or to come up with green projects. So these are 2-3 areas which I say that cost effective, less capital required, and their potential is immense, huge.
Thank you very much. Naseer, I think every road leads to technology these days. So my question to you would be, again with the young audience sitting here, how does Pakistan double its exports in 3 years of IT, and where is the exact opportunities where you see somebody today and how they can benefit from that? One idea that comes from Vaseem Saab's side is one of you should start making a rating for all the labor that graduates from his training institutes at his different sites, and then people can log on and hire construction people. So the better the rating, somebody can get a higher daily wage, and that builds a whole database like his wife has done, which I keep asking somebody to ask. So over to you, sir.
Thank you. Saad, you are not the only person who is aspiring and looking at IT sector to be the savior, particularly the deficit that we have in our exports and imports, without putting in much of material or investments. IT and services sector is one that we can scale. It starts with a very buzzword that we have, and in reality, it's there. The potential is there. Everyone talks about that we have a younger population, 60% of our population under the age of 30. I mean, which really tells us that so much that we can do. But unless we educate those 60% and equip them with the right kind of skills, they are not a potential, they are actually a threat if we don't enable them to do something meaningful and which is billable or which can be monetized. So, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, she knows the subject and all that. So, coming back to technology, probably the least investment required is that, and that is right kind of education and skills. I'll give you the sad part of it when we run into comparison. We produce right now around 30,000 engineering and IT graduates in a year across Pakistan, 30,000. Out of which employable from day one, which can be productive, are merely 25%. So you can imagine the deficit that we have. Now the potential side is that a textile worker contributes in terms of his or her skills and input of whether physical labor or intellectual or physical labor, brings us $600 per person. In IT services exports, one individual brings $20,000 annually. So that is the scale, and that is how we run into comparison why India is exporting $200 billion and why we are. Because we are grossly short of capacity. Okay, two things. One is the formal education, the quality of education in the universities is obviously needs a tremendous improvement. We need more enrollments in the universities. I mean, by any logic, we should have been producing at least 100,000 IT and engineering graduates a year rather than 30,000. And our employability and the quality of those graduates should have been not 20%, but at least 40–50%. So that is the scale that now the best thing is that you don't really in this day and age you don't need really a paper degree to prove to somebody that you can be hired. I mean, if you are logical, if you can do coding, all what you need is a basic mathematics and logical skills. I think globally it's around 15% that people don't have formal engineering education are adding into the coding pool by going through an assessment that yes, I can relate 2 + 2 4 and I can apply a logic and I can become a developer or a coder. So you don't need to spend 16 years. I mean, right after metric or 12th grade of education, if you think you can apply your logic and mathematical skills into it, you can be. But there has to be a structured and scalable programs to produce these developers in order to leverage the potential that we have globally, which is 2.2 trillion. Now, in order to give a little bit of jolt to our politicians or the financial planners, we say this. I mean, it's a really shame that one company out of India, one company, Tata Consulting, employs 650,000 employees, and their revenue is $28 billion, equivalent to the total country's exports, just one company. And our entire technology workforce of Pakistan is not more than 300,000. So this is the scale. Now we have that population. We have probably 100 million young people who can be equipped, who can be educated to quickly grab that opportunity of making $20,000 out of the rest of the world, $2.2 trillion of economy, which is right there. We don't need infrastructure, electricity, railroads, ships, and all that. No raw material, no machinery, just intellectual, just education and skills to capture that potential.
Thank you very much, Jeet. It's one company versus Pakistan, and we are half of that, so not a good sight, but also talks about the opportunity that we have and where we can go. I think now we've come to the most important part. Please, anyone, feel free to ask questions. Everyone here is very helpful. Grab them for a coffee afterwards. That's one of the things of ThinkFest. They're all available here, and they've got free passes for free coffee, so they'll be treating you also. So please, anyone have any questions?
And currently I'm in contact with a lot of distributors around the world, right? But whenever we talk about the products that are, we have here in Pakistan, and we really want to send them out in the world, the perception in the world of the Pakistani products are not really, since you have Nestle, it's a multinational company, and I'm sure the image of Nestle is amazing around the world. But for me, when I talk about my products and when I talk to distributors around the world, they're not really, perceiving those products as a high quality product, right? So how do you think I, on an individual level, can work for my country, for my company, right? And can make that perception really good in front of the distributors around the world? I would really like to take your input.
That's a very good question. In the food business, there are a number of standards you have to meet, sanitary and so on, and they are very strict. For example, Pakistan is not able to export to China and other countries because we have foot and mouth disease. So although we have a lot of cows, a lot of buffaloes, but we're not able to. So this is one of you have to meet all the requirements that are there. That is one. And I think also you need to perhaps, the easy way would be, which a lot of people are doing, find the Pakistan ethnic community outside and start with them, because they would know some of your products. I don't know what they are, but this is what some other people, Mitchells are doing this, other people are also doing. They're sending Saad outside, sarson mein saag and so on. So I think this is perhaps the way to go forward. Also, I'd just like to comment a little bit about the IT sector. I asked a few of systems were telling me that to export $1 billion worth of IT, we just need 25,000 skilled IT people. That's it.
We are right in the starting curve. We can, I think, with the kind of skills that we have, we can only make up to $25,000 per headcount. So which calls for 50,000 people to add another $1 billion. So only producing 30,000 a year. So how can we aspire to go to 15 billion or 20 billion, as we hear from every prime minister, without educating them to in order to capture that potential?
And this is all available locally. You don't even have to go to UAE to get $1 billion and ask for that for your foreign exchange. There was a question in the back there.
It was an excellent session. I would like to thank all of our esteemed panel here for their ideas. The main question I have is Syed Yawar साहब कि ये जो सर अभी हमने देखा है कि हमारी जो पाक काव है, it is currently producing the same amount of milk that it was making in 1910. How many years would we require कि ये जो है US की काव है उसका जो standard of meet करेगी? I have actually 3-4 questions if I would be allowed to.
So let's keep it to two because there'll be other people who want to follow this.
It's actually quite simple now. We have what we call artificial insemination, which means you take semen from the best producing cows and buffaloes, and if they are producing, let's say, 35 liters, you put it in a cow which is producing 5 liters. So the next generation will be at least 15 to 20 liters. So you can triple it within 2 to 3 years. That is a possibility. Then, of course, there are other technologies that.
Why is it not happening? Like it's so simple. Why is it not happening? Right?
Well, you need a whole ecosystem for that. Normally, governments has been involved in it, and what government is doing is they are producing their own semen, and which and competing with the private sector. So that is one I think government needs to get out of it, because the private sector can't do it unless they start making sufficient money. The second is now they have technology which is called sex semen. So if you have a sex semen, you can get 90% female cows, which means that you're saving a lot of money feeding a cow and then getting a male at the end of it. Third, we have what is called the VTF, which is you take any surrogate cow, you put a semen of, let's say, Friesian, and also the ovary of the also Friesian, and you get a Friesian cow coming out of a Sahiwal cow. So these are all available. But I think we need to encourage this, and this is where some support is required.
Yeah, on IT, there are pretty much set formulas as to which sector of IT. IT has a huge variances in charge rate. Like, for example, a very low-end developer or a BPO, business process outsourcing, call center agent and all that will bring you the lowest billing rate. And if you are into high-end development, design, architectural kind of things, you can go up to $25,000, $30,000 yield per person. And if you move up on the platforms and products, then you touch $70,000, $80,000 per head count. We do have those, but the numbers are too small. For example, my company, we run 14 stock exchanges globally, and the yield per head count out of those very specialized technology and skills, we make about $150,000 per head count in those. But we don't have that scale. So your question is very valid that Tata Consulting has moved up that ladder over the past 30, 40 years. So out of 650,000 people that they probably have 50,000 people which bring them $100,000 per person billing. Whereas the rest is probably the same, $25,000, $30,000 average yield per person. So we are moving up the ladder, and we are hopeful about that, and we are massively creating capacity as much as we can, industry at its own. Not much of a strategic intervention from the government. They realize, but they are caught in a situation probably that they can't really see the return on investment as good as they see in another area probably. So it's their own priority. So the industry is growing organically, but the potential is huge for individuals, for freelancers, for even people who are studying. They can do wonders in this. They are not decently educated to be employed. What they have learned in 4 years, they really don't know. When you ask them, okay, can you code some assignments? So they fail because they earned a paper degree. 70% or 75% of those graduates which come out, they really don't know how to do development, how to write code. That is very unfortunate. Mostly. Okay, I can give you a composition that the 6,000 to 8,000 engineering and IT graduates coming out of those traditional universities, UET, NED, LUMS, FAST, GIK, NUST, that's it. So they produce people who are not only employable, but they are outstanding. I mean, most of them, they go out for further studies, and they also take up jobs, which also adds value to us because they obviously earn and send back to us. But we need in hundreds of thousands, we need those people in order to be able to export IT services, for which the demand is huge. We have seen in past 5-7 years, the countries like Philippines, Vietnam, even Bangladesh have outpaced us in IT now. They are touching $5 billion of export. We are hovering around $3.5 billion. Because we are not producing the right kind of material which is used in that. We are not educating people to that level. So all what we need is an investment in educating those people and providing them skills which are needed.
And on that note, I'm going to ask Anwar Saab, really, because I think it's a great story. You have to hear what his wife has achieved and done. Most people don't. These are the stories which people need to know, right? And success and how you do it and how you come up with an idea and you create something. And for all the young people in this room, this is actually a brilliant example. So Anwar Saab, I'm sorry I keep harping on it. Nobody asked the question, so
No, that's fine. I believe we are living in an age where you don't have to inherit to be from scratch to become the richest or the most powerful person in the world. It's your own domain, it's your own world. So to supplement this, the concept of the startup ecosystem, that's really nourished the idea of turning your dreams into reality. And I just give you one example. One day, my wife was a teacher. She was teaching French, and she said to me that I would want to start a small beauty salon. And I said, no, you cannot do it because we got 2 younger children. You got to look after like any male husband or like a traditional. She said, okay, here's the deal. I'll start it from home. Will not move out. And the kids not will be compromised. I said, fine. She started with 1 room and then pushed to the 2nd room, the 3rd room, 4th room. Pretty soon that she said that we need to move out and rent a place in the next street so I can use this as an office. Fine. This has happened. That I said, okay, we move out. Then one day she came up with this idea that the idea of IT coming into play of an entrepreneurship. She said, I have an idea, and that is to develop an app whereby I take the beauticians from the beauty industry and I connect them with the customers. And I said, how are you going to do that? She said, it's very simple, that there are women in the marginalized communities.
Without saying the name, there are people who started recognizing it.
Ghar, that's right. And she said that there are women from marginalized communities and who work at the beauty salon. They make only 10 to 12,000 rupees a month. But I can help them do a better earning in terms of by putting them on this platform. So she would take the women from these marginalized communities and train them on our platform for 3 to 6 months. And this is exactly, Naseer, what you're talking about. No degrees. It's like on-job vocational training, skill development, what you actually require in order to do this. And in addition to that, they develop a very strong QA/QC system. And you are her mentor there. And then on the other side, she started engaging, registering the customer base. So the whole concept of Ghar is Uber for beauty, where women do not have to go to beauty salons to get the services done. You get the app, download the app, place an order, will pick up the order, and the closest beautician will come and render the service. And the quality system is so strong that the quality of service is very uniform. And within 4 years from scratch, it has gone on to almost close to 1 million customer base, over 800,000. And the employment she has created for women from marginalized communities is inching up towards 10,000. So dreams can come true, provided you have to believe in it. And at the end of the day, what is very, very important in converting your dreams into reality is how you execute your dreams, how you execute your plans. So the word is out there, it's all yours, go do it, and think of innovative ideas. There's plenty of ways you can go out and conquer and rule the world.
This room has gone from having nobody to overflowing and standing space. So I must say our panel has done something right. I'm unfortunately out of time. I'm sure we could continue, but I would encourage anyone, if you have questions, grab them. They can get you a free coffee if nothing else, but can give advice as well. But thank you very, very much. This was amazing. Thank you for your patience. Sorry if we bored you. Hope at least Ghar Pe inspired you to go out and do something, and it was lovely having you all here. I want to thank the panel. Thank you for your time, and thank you for making the effort to be here with us today. And look forward to more ThinkFest sessions in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.